Jason, you must have got more sleep than I did last night.
Coffee's a good thing.
Yeah, okay. So coffee. So today we are going to talk about what I call PoshMon. Okay, so PoshMon is the latest entry in our Jamaican toolkit. You know, so you got Regmon, you got Procmon, you know, so now we got PoshMon. Or if you don't like that, PowerShell does performance counters. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is, let's see, how can I say this? I am not advocating this as a quote unquote best practice. What I'm going to do is just show you something and you can make the decision, you know, if this is something that you want to do, that you want to implement or not. Okay, I could literally talk about this subject all week long. Okay, so this is going to be, you know, the chef's tour of the kitchen. Okay, so here's our pots and pans, here's the frying pan, there's the microwave, have that. I've got a link at the end of the slide deck, so if you get the slide decks, to 20 or 30 Hey Scripting Guy blog articles, you know, where I've kind of abstracted a lot of this stuff from, so you can go there, you can look at it. Now there may be some very real reasons in which you want to try to do this kind of stuff. So for instance, if you need to do some like ad hoc monitoring or something, so you're working, you know, with some stuff, you know, maybe you've got this, you know, SQL database or something you've been doing, you know, you've got it in test, you make a couple of changes, change some stuff into some stored procedures, or you remove some stored procedures, whatever you want to do, you modify your indexes and stuff, and you just want to check really quick and see what is the difference. You know, it's the old, what I call the eye doctor syndrome. Is this better or is this worse? Is this better or is this worse? Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I've got a lot of articles on the Scripting Guy blog because I have seen so many times where people spend a lot of time working on like a PowerShell script, for instance, just to screw it up. Yeah, in many respects, PowerShell is really easy. Yeah, it's hard to mess it up, but some people go that extra mile to take something that was nice, sweet, easy, reasonably performant, and then they just mess it up. Yeah, trying to maybe make it do something that it was never really meant to do in the first place. I get lots of Scripting Guy email. Yeah, hey, that's where Hey Scripting Guy comes from. You know, people send this stuff to scripter@microsoft.com. Hey, I'm trying to do this, 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 and this. A lot of times my answer is, you need to use group policy to do that. You know, don't use PowerShell, you know, to try to take the place of group policy. So what I'm showing you here, yeah, absolutely, man. If you've got an app that you normally work on, you know, use Performance Monitor. You know, save your counter set, you know, and have something, you know, that you can use on a regular basis to test. But, you know, if you just wanted to do something really quick, or you wanted to automate work with those performance counters and stuff, then this is going to work. Now, there are two kinds of counters, cooked and raw. I'm not making this up. Yeah, the raw counters have more fiber. Well, no, not really. But what you want to do, I would say what everybody in here probably wants to do, use the cooked counters. The cooked counters, they're baked. Okay. So it includes the concept of time. Okay. So if I tell you that the percentage of processor utilization is 25%, you might say, wow, groovy. But if you think about it, I really haven't told you much of anything. 25% of what? Yeah, 25% during the week. You know, it's only, you know, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. when the processors are pegged at 100%. But hey, they rest at night and on the weekends. You know, so it's 25% for the week. Hey, you know, we don't need to upgrade. Yeah, hey, I've seen stuff like that. You have to have this concept of time. You know, it's just, you know, when I measure this, what is the unit of measurement? You know, and how is this going on? Now, of course, you also, and we're not going to get into this, But if you were going to go into performance monitoring at a big deal, you have to take into account the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Okay? Which means I'm monitoring something, and therefore I'm changing its behavior. So, and I've seen people do this, where they come in and they have like 25,000 performance counters. We're monitoring everything about everything. And guess what? It's the monitoring that's killing your server. You know, particularly when you start sucking it across the wire. Now you're killing the network. Okay, so be careful with this. You know, just kind of dial in and look at it. Okay, so you need to look at the levels of the values. So we level these things out so that you can use these numbers in a more general fashion. These are going to be generally acceptable for troubleshooting and a little bit of fine tuning. Now, the raw counters are just that, raw. So you then have to establish how your concept of time is going to be. You're the one that needs to try to figure out what your units of measurement and value are going to be used for. Obviously, they're a lot more complicated to use. These are the kinds of things that are normally used by third-party software applications that do performance tuning and monitoring. You know, this becomes their secret sauce. You know, that how they pull this stuff together, which ones they kind of do, you know, that they can maybe give you a little bit better accurate diagnostic or something. That's their secret sauce. You know, well, we're not going to go into that. You could write it in PowerShell, but dude, why? So one of the things you need to know is that as you start looking at this stuff, you know, is you've got your performance monitor counters, you've got the stuff that you're seeing in PowerShell. Okay, they do relate. Now we don't call them the same thing, but they do relate. So PoshMon instance is going to be your WMI class name. Your PoshMon counter is going to be a property via WMI, and I'm showing the old-fashioned get WMI object stuff just because I know that there's a lot of people, you know, they're still doing that. You can absolutely change every bit of this and use, you know, get sim instance. Okay, I just used the old stuff here. PoshMon computer is going to be your WMI computer name with a CM property or a _server. You can do this stuff local. You can do this remote because it's WMI. You can use sim to do this. Creating your WMI counters then is as simple as get WMI object or get sim instance. You know, your class name, dude, that's it. Okay, this is just like any other thing. Okay, get WMI class name. Now this becomes a singleton. We don't get the pipeline input to this, but what we can do is take an array of WMI class names, and then we can use for each and walk through this. So in a script that you were writing where you're wanting to monitor some stuff, to pull some information back, you can create yourself an array of WMI class names, and then for each, inside there, get WMI object, $_, boom, and you automatically query all this stuff. I'm going to show you some other stuff that's even cool. Okay? Variables help, especially when you're working remotely with this stuff. So one of the things that I like to do then is, hey, I don't like to type. I know I've written a lot of books, I write a blog every day. I don't like to type. Okay? Or perhaps I should say I don't like to do unnecessary typing. So I like to use PowerShell to do the typing for me. I was talking with Jeff yesterday, and I said, you know, one of the things I love to do is to have PowerShell write scripts for me. Yeah, hey, it saves a lot of time. Yeah, I've got some PowerShell scripts that write my blog for me. But that's another story. Yeah, I'm not going to show those to you. Yeah. So here, what I do, I take a variable and I use get WMI object dash list. That's how, hey, I'm interested for stuff related to performance OS memory. Okay, so I use some wildcards here because these WMI class names are really, really long. I hate typing those. Now, if you're using get sim instance, we have tab completion, but the problem is you're trying to tab complete through 900 WMI class names. Yeah, and they're all begin with 132 underscore perf formatted blah blah blah. Yeah, so just use a little bit of wildcard stuff and just skip all that typing and tabbing and everything else. Yeah. So we create our array here. So this is going to get me performance counter classes related to memory, disk, and the processor. Okay? And if something else changes, something's different, we're going to pick it up. You install some software that adds some WI classes, and some performance counter stuff, you'll pick it up. Okay? So good. There it is. And so we get this. Now, so if I need to start working remotely on this thing, keep, of course, remember that your monitoring is going to affect your machine. Now, if in times when I was trying to be very accurate in characterizing my machines, then what I would do is I would also monitor the performance impact of my monitoring and then subtract those from the values. Okay, so you can help to reduce that. So if you find out that your monitoring script is using, let's say just for silliness, 5% of the CPU time, well, then you can subtract that 5% out from your final numbers. Because, okay, this is what I have characterized that the impact of my stuff is. How much memory am I using, network traffic, and all that junk. It's not entirely accurate, but it's close enough if you're wanting to try to get, a little bit more accurate. So we need to specify account with local admin rights if we're working remotely. Specify the remote computer, store your credentials. This is one of the things that I love to do is that, and I sometimes even put this in my profile. So when PowerShell starts up, it prompts me for credentials, and I type it in. Now, if I've got 3 or 4 or 5 different domains that I normally work with, then I can have 3 or 4 or 5 different prompts, and so I can store admin credentials for the different domains. They're in a variable. So okay, this is $NW Traders. This is $Contoso. This is Woodbridge, what have you. And so you've got your credentials there. So it's right there from the beginning. There's even some ways that Lee Holmes has written some very good blog articles where you could even store those credential objects locally in a file on your local computer. And so you wouldn't even be prompted. But the nice thing is that this is a standard PowerShell credential object. And so I can use this for anything where I need to supply credentials. If I'm using get WMIs, if I'm using get sim instance, get sim class, if I'm doing a WinRM, PowerShell, remote connection, I can use these credentials. So this is one of these things where you write it once and you use it many times. And I do not normally close PowerShell. It's the first thing I open up in the morning. It's the last thing that gets closed when I shut the machine down at night. Matter of fact, most of the time on my Windows 8 machine, stop-computer-force press enter. It's faster than trying to get that little Perl bar to jump up or the little Lucky Charms, to try to find this. Hey, I'm already there in PowerShell. Stop computer works for me, and it works really good. So yeah, I'm always using this credential object. So you store it once, I use it all day long. You can use an array for your remote computers, and if you're using the sim command list, you create your sim session from this array of computers. Personally, what I do is I don't do this. What I actually do is, because I've got the remote server admin tools installed on my Windows 8 laptop, then I use get AD computer, and I do a filter so that I pull back only the computer names that I need to use. I told Jeffrey Snowers in the back of the room, making me really nervous. But I was he's not listening to me. Okay. I told Jeffrey one time, right back in the beta period on PowerShell 3, I said, my favorite PowerShell 3 feature. Okay, so I'm going to tell you this. And it is what I call the automatic for each. So I store a collection in a variable. So I use get AD computer, and it comes back with 150 computer names. dot name, press enter, it's there. Yeah, and Jeffrey looked at me like, yeah, it's not SIM, it's not workflow, it's not PowerShell web access, all this other really cool stuff. Yeah, and I said, no, man, it's the automatic for each. Yeah, and I said, I'll tell you why. I use it 150 times a day. I mean, I don't use workflow 150 times a day. When I need it, that's great. I mean, it's a really cool, great feature. But this automatic for each has saved me the ROI on that. Yeah, using this thing 150 times a day, saves me 10,000 lines of code in a year. That's a significant ROI. And so I love that feature. So yeah, and because of that, it actually made it easier to use these get AD computer. So I use that now because dude, it's automatic. Yeah, sort out a variable .name. And not only this, I can also pick up the OS version from AD. And so then I could just put me a where clause in it. So I only do that query once. So we're reducing our network traffic. And then I can say, okay, so where my OS version is Windows 8 or 2008 or 2008 R2. And then I could do my performance monitoring counters, using that only on my 2008 servers or my 2008 R2 servers, or only in the servers that were in my SQL farm. Okay, by querying by OU or something. Okay, so I don't type computer names anymore ever since PowerShell 3 came out. So use a variable for the class. You definitely want to do this. Because these, I mean, look at this. 132 underscore performance formatted data underscore perf disk underscore logical disk. Put that in a variable. You don't want to have to type that more than once. And the way I showed you earlier with the goofy stuff using the wildcards, I don't even have to type it once. So I use get WObject list, with the correct wildcard, I get that class name, so I don't even have to type it one time. Okay, so let's go on. So using counters and variables, this is just an example of how you would do that. Okay, now the get counter commandlet. So we were talking about using WMI with these performance counters. Okay, so now we're going to shift gears just a little bit, and we're going to talk about using get counter. Get counter was introduced in PowerShell 2, and when I seen that, I was like, man, this is cool. This is really cool. I mean, this is worthwhile because now I don't have to wrestle with all of those WMI performance counter classes. Now, one of the reasons that I showed you those WMI performance counter classes, though, is guess what? You can go to like the Scripting Guys script repository, and you can find some old VB scripts that were written, in the last century. And you go in there, find that little bit of WMI code where they were using performance, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, cut, paste, throw it into dash query on get WMI object, and you've just upgraded that 50-line VB script into a one-line PowerShell. Okay, so you want to know that, you want to know how to use that. This is all using the new stuff. So I say get counter list set. And so what we get now is we get sets of performance counters. The nice thing is they're friendly names. The browser service, client-side caching, the fax service, ICMP, ICMP v6. So these are counter sets for this. This is something that you're going to need to spend a little bit of time kind of learning how to do. Okay, it's not going to be as intuitively obvious to you as using get sim instance or get WMI object and those long performance counter classes. All right, so these are the so your get counter command sets. These equal the counter sets that you see in PoshMon, performance monitor. So the thing is, this is almost kind of like a WYSIWYG. Okay, so notice that .NET CLR data. We don't have to do the translation. It's .NET CLR data. So if I see something in PoshMon, that counter set, I can use it directly over here with get counter. Okay, so .NET CLR locks and blah, 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 same thing. .NET CLR locks and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Using the get counter command line again. So the computer name is going to default to your local host. Now this is something that's actually pretty cool. You get your counter and do -continuous. And so now you've got your monitoring. Okay, so like I said, this is something that you're going to want to do. This makes it really easy to start doing your performance monitoring. So you made that change on your SQL Server, and it's in test, and you want to run some quick stuff. So I can actually use get counter, and do continuous, and it's going to do . We have a sample interval, and we can specify max samples. The default max samples is 1, so it's going to go boom. The sample interval is how long before we take another snapshot. This is also really, really tricky from a performance standpoint perspective. So if you monitor, say, at once a minute, you're going to ignore, obviously, processor spikes. And you guys know enough about this. So, the big thing here is, remember, PowerShell is not magic. I know it seems like it's magic, but it's not. So you need to then approach this from a performance monitoring methodology, performance monitoring standpoint. Okay, and now the counter path includes the computer name, the counter set, the instance, and the counter name. And what I'm going to show you in a little bit is something that's really cool, because since we got the whack computer name, what if I put those counter paths in a text file? Now, what does PowerShell eat for lunch? Text files. That's how it gets its fiber. And that's not text tile, it's text file. So anyway, it must be early. You guys aren't getting my jokes. Or maybe you get them and you're being polite, and not groaning. Okay. So PowerShell eats text files for lunch. So that means, I'm going to show you this in a little bit, where I got this file with all these counter paths, and one of the things that I used to hate was I go into PoshMon and I come up with the perfect performance counter monitoring set. I save it. What can I do with that? I can run that perfect performance counter during set, where I used to spend hours, back in like NT4, NT351, going in and clicky, and getting it set up just right, and save that thing. And that's for one server. What if I want to do this on my other server, DC2, for instance? I've got it on DC1. What about DC2? Well, you're looking at another couple hours going clicky, stop. That's where the phrase button monkey came from. Okay, so with PowerShell, we could solve that problem. So I put my performance counter paths in a text file, and now I can just use get content -replace computer DC1, replace it with DC2. Save it out to DC2, counter file. Do the same thing for DC3, 4, 5. It'll even work if you want to use it on Exchange 1. You've solved that problem. Now you've got the way to take your counter set from computer A and put it on any of the servers that you want. And we can actually save these as BLG files, which is what PoshMon analyzes. And we can restart, restop, whatever. So actually, as part of your server build package, you could write scripts where you had created your own customized PoshMon sets, and as part of your build package, you parse this file, change the computer name, save it into your BLG file section where you want on that server, and now anybody that goes in, logs onto that server, then they can go in there and run that customized trace. Yes, sir?
Can these customized counters be exported or picked up by SCOM?
Yes. Once you've got it into like that BLG file, then yeah, SCOM can deal with it. Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually some really, really cool stuff. So these are the resources that I've got. Okay, I wanted to make sure I showed you my resource slide. Yeah, I got so excited yesterday that I forgot to show you my resource slide. But which is actually, it's interesting. It's not just that I want you to see this cool book written by this guy that looks a lot like Robert Redford over here. But I actually took the time to go out. Microsoft has its own Bitly service internally. We haven't opened it up to the rest of the world. It's AKAMS, by the way. And so I have to go and give it a URL, request what we call a vanity name. And so I created one yesterday for the right modules, not scripts. And so that AKMS is on that slide deck for that. It'll take you to all the Hey Scripting Guy blog articles where I have picked out everything related to modules. Well, this has everything related to PoshMon and PowerShell. So you want to do this, you can jot this down easy. It's aka.ms/PoshMon. It's also in the slide deck. And then this is some other stuff that's related to that. So I wanted to show those to you. Now we've got a few minutes. So I want to show you a couple of scripts that I've written. These scripts are, by the way, if you follow these links, the scripts are on the Hey Scripting Guy blog. And I have a 1,500, 2,000 word article describing the technique. Okay, so you'll want to look at that, and by reading and understanding that, then you'll be able to modify these things and make them do what you want to. So I'm going to close this out. It's a little bunny. How's that? And so let's come over here. I'm not going to run this, but then this was showing how I was getting my performance counters, creating the listing of formats counters, and all of that stuff. And so this shows how I can use the query and get my listing of performance counters that are related to per formatted data, blah blah blah. If I want to pick up only the name property, then I can just use dotted notation. And get that there. So that's no big deal. So this right here is I do the queries and I build an array of the performance counters. And once we do this, then we can actually turn around, and this is actually pretty cool. So I'm just going to run all of this code at once. We'll see some errors because it says it's going to fail. Now, what's interesting here is when I pick these class names up, we actually wind up with strings. Okay? So that's why I can't just say, give me the class name and put it immediately into an array. Now, I'm telling you this to save yourself at least an hour of your life. Okay, because that's how long it took me to figure out what was happening and how come it wasn't working. Okay, so that's why I'm showing this to you. It's in the code. So what I need to do is to split on the carriage return line feed. Once I do that, then now we can see that that we're getting the class names are coming out. Okay. Now, why am I doing this? Well, because I want to get an array of performance counter class names, so I don't have to do any typing. A, and B, then I can now take that variable $C, and I've picked up all of the counters that I want. I can send this to for each next, and inside you just get WMyObject. Okay. So in just a very, very quick time, then I'm going to be able to automate querying a whole bunch of classes. Okay, so I can do this via the pipeline. So there's my for each object, get WMyObject for this thing, and we run it, and we can see that we get our performance counters. This down here error that I'm getting, that's because that particular class doesn't exist on my machine. Okay, but so this is a one-liner now, and we've gotten all of this performance counter information. So it becomes very, very quick. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up a couple of scripts and show those to you. And so we're going to run this and come over here. So this is a function that I wrote called get WMI performance data. So I've specified the different values, the name, the class, and the information, the instances, the delays, and all of that. For each computer that's in my collection of computers, we're going to get this particular property, which is the double underscore total value. And so then this is going to then pull this out. So I'll run the script, and so it came back 517. Okay, so this is the total amount of processor utilization on my machine. Okay, now this is something that I love because this is PowerShell. Then this makes it very easy for me to do analysis work. Okay, I mean almost without trying. So I'm going to take the same information, where I'm doing the same query. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this to measure object. So this is the easy way. During my monitoring period, what was my minimum, maximum, average CPU utilization? Okay, this is PowerShell. So it makes it really easy for me to get this information. So my average, minimum, and maximum is right here. Average was 17.75% on my processor utilization. Maximum was 27, minimum was 5. Do you know how hard that would be, how long it would take me to do that using PoshMon? And again, it's not going to be obvious exactly the stuff I want. What's my minimum, maximum, and average? So this is why we want to do this kind of stuff using PowerShell. And so I run this in this little script, come over, look, okay. Well, dude, I didn't help my average utilization. So we go back and make some other changes to our SQL server or to our SharePoint server, our Exchange server, whatever it is we're playing around with, run it again. Now, in another pane, and this is where people like SQL DBAs really get squirrely, because they write some SQL code to stress test their system while they're doing it. Okay, so we're going to insert 1 million rows, and do 10 million table scans, and let's see what happens. Okay, so they can run that stuff in their other pane, on the ISE. Click. Okay, run this. Okay, now it's stressing. Pop back over to this tab. Let's run this. I mean, this is it, and this is PowerShell. So you don't even have to bother, trying to mess with SQL trace or something. For low, and I'm just using SQL as an example, for low key, low test, low hanging fruit stuff. Now, I'm not saying this is replacing any of these exotic test suites that you may or may not have. I mean, this isn't, Mercury Load Runner, for goodness sake. But, I mean, hey, it's not $1 million a pop either. So this is free. It's right here. And what I'm showing you, you've been able to do since PowerShell 2.0. Okay, so this isn't anything even new, and that's why I'm using the old classes, so that I don't want you to think, oh well, man, I can't do that until we get to Windows 8. You can do this now. Okay, so that's actually pretty cool. I love that particular one. Well, let's take a look at this one here. So this is going to calculate my average utilization. So so I empty out my array, and then I come over here and I use write progress now, which I love using write progress. So as I am gathering my performance data, write progress goes along, blah 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 blah. Then I've got another function that I call evaluate the object, where I'm going to do a special format. Over here, I call it data points, etc. And then we get down here to the actual part where I set it up, and then I call each of the different three functions. So now the reason that I wrote the code in this way, which is something I normally would not do. Matter of fact, I told you yesterday, don't write scripts, write modules. Okay, but the reason I've got it this way is because this fits in with my scenario. So these scripts become my test suite. Okay, so I've got this thing customized to the point that I know that I need to run these 5, 6, 7 scripts or something like this. So I'm going to make my changes. I'm going to run these. So I want the point and click ability. I don't want to have to go in and type it, particularly when on my other tab I'm going to be stress testing my machine. One of the things that a long time ago, back when I used to do this kind of stuff for a living, is I would have different computers, and I would start, banging away at the machine on this machine, get over here, and have to click, click, click to get stuff started. And quite often, the condition I was trying to monitor would have already run and expired before I got everything over here set up. That's the problem with being a button monkey. Okay, that's the problem with trying to get PoshMon to start exactly when you want it to do and add these certain kinds of things. So that's another advantage of doing this. Like I said, this is just for like low hanging fruit. Testing, troubleshooting. This is not your overall monitoring program. Okay, so we had our right progress. It popped up there, and now I've got my output. So I had 10 data points, my average, my minimum, my maximum. Okay, now what I could do then is if I need to prove that my changes were sufficient, I can write these out to an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, and this becomes, so if I was the dev that was making the changes, and I need to prove the document that, hey, when I was done messing with it, it worked even better. You guys are smiling now. I mean, you always know the last person that touched it is the first person that's blamed scenario. So this is your proof. Hey, it was better when I was done with it, honest. I'm not the one that installed a Quake server on the Exchange server, I don't know. People still install Quake servers on the network from time to time. Okay, well, so that's how long ago since I've been in the field. The Fortune 500 company I used to work for, that was one of the major problems is people were going off and, hey, here's this server. It's not being used that much. Let's turn it into a Quake server. So this is actually kind of cool. So remember I was talking about, I said, okay, so I can take this, I can write this stuff out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually write this to an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to do my performance monitoring. So I get my performance process utilization. I'm going to capture all that performance data, and then I'm going to write it out to Excel. And oh, one of the things here, I want to point this out to you. It only took us like 25 years. But remember in the old days, before 2013, you would create a new Excel workbook, and you always got 3 Excel spreadsheet pages. So one of the first things that I learned how to do when I started, this was back in VB Script days, when I first started automating Excel, was I learned how to delete those 2 extra sheets because I never used them. I mean, dude, I'm a nerd. I'm not an accountant. Now, Teresa, she knows how to use 3 Excel spreadsheets. I don't. I can barely use one. So matter of fact, she's asked me a couple of times how I did something. I said, I don't know. I wrote the code, man. I don't know the GUI on that. But anyway, 2013. So when you upgrade to Office 2013 and you go back to those old VB scripts, PowerShell scripts that I wrote, automating Excel, comment these out because we now only have 1 sheet. And so getting rid of item 2 and 3 will generate errors. So that's why I have those comments there rather than just like deleting the code. So let's see what happens. So I'm going to run this script. And so we go off, we got right progress, we're getting our percentage of our processor utilization. and then it goes over, and after we've collected our performance data, then we will open up Excel, and then I automatically format the chart. So I didn't quite get over there fast enough, but what you would see is the data was there, it was added to the Excel spreadsheet, and then it would create a chart. Well, that chart was the default chart, and I didn't like the default chart. I wanted this nice, really cool 3D, flat bar chart, that's blue and stuff. So that's where you see the chicka, where it's changing out. My new laptop is fast enough you don't get to see it as much. My old laptop, it was like watching a slow motion movie. You could see it pop up and then you said change. So it was actually better for demos because you could see what it was doing. This is a little faster. Actually, this laptop's a whole lot faster. And I can thank my old scripting manager, for my new laptop on this one. Good job, Dave. All right, so that's taking my performance counters and writing it out to a database. And really and truly, this is about all of the time I've got left for. I can use hit counter here. And so I can use these counter sets. And when I do, then we go off. And the nice thing about using the counter sets is, look, we get a whole bunch of data all at once. Okay, so it's time stamped. We get all of our information there, and we get all of the process utilization and everything else. So each of these counter sets are just like the major clump that I added into PoshMon. So these really are using get counter with these counter sets is the easiest way to get from a. If you're needing more fine-tuned control, then use your WMI PoshMon classes like I showed you at the top. If you're wanting to just do some big snapshots quick and easy, use get counter and grab these counter sets. So any questions about anything that I have shown you this morning? Like I said, this is the Cook's tour. There's a whole lot more stuff. See, I said I could talk about that for the whole week. So there's a whole lot more stuff there. All these scripts, all of these techniques are documented on the Scripting Guy blog. If you go to akams/PoshMon, you'll have the link to all of these things. Any questions? You got 2 minutes. Yes, sir.
You got those set up for exporting counters on the Scripting Guy articles?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So I save it out. I save my file path, and where I had like the computer name, and then I go in there and I show you how to use replace to change that. And then once you do that, then that's when you just import it into the counter set.
If we want future versions of this, we'll PowerShell without use
I'm not even sure if future versions of Office you'll be able to install on your local computer. To the cloud, man. Yeah. So no, I have absolutely no idea. I do know.
They still haven't gotten rid of VBA.
Yeah.
6 in there. I would expect Confidence support to still be around for a while.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was hoping that they would get rid of VBA and replace it with PowerShell. So that I would go into. I need to do the automating. There'd just be like on Excel that. Where you used to go into the VBA editor, you click on it and it would open it up into PowerShell prompt. I saw like, new dash spreadsheet, new dash chart or something. That's not there. There are some projects on Codeflex, where people have written some stuff. I've written a lot of Scripting Guy blog articles where I wrote a set of functions that you could actually put into a module, for new Word document, and stuff like that. One of the really cool things I did is I did a week's worth of articles about automated PowerPoints, and creating. So I would like read a Word document, pick out all of my my outline, and use that to create a PowerPoint slide deck, and then apply themes and stuff like that. I did some really cool ones on automated Visio too. So those are pretty contained functions. I did a week's worth of Outlook, where you can use those functions, to query for calendar appointments and search for emails and stuff like that. It it would be a lot of work to expand that to a complete module that would allow you to have some degree of control, over that. So when I need to do Excel, I usually just throw it to a CSV file and then import the CSV file into Excel rather than using the column automation model like I showed you here. The only time I do that kind of stuff is if I'm needing a chart or something, like that, but that's pretty easy to automate. Okay. That's it. Thank you, sir.